Good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome you all to an important and exciting session in a discussion on a very important subject, which we call as Taming Emerging Technologies to be Leader in the Era of Compounded Disruption. When we talk about this, as part of the FICCI's task force on privacy and data security, we are happy to present this session with the senior experts who have joined in, and of course, our keynote speaker, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi, who is joining from US. Thank you, sir, for joining in here, and thank you for all the leadership who have been here from the FICCI side to support this initiative. As part of FICCI, we feel we all know and we are all committed that we understand the importance of technology, which is the backbone for and in everything which as in lives we do or as businesses we are doing it. And with the advent of the new emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, AR, VR, and the others, we feel that this is further going to change how we are going to take it forward. Keeping that in mind and data being the core component for the same, we understand that this needs to be managed rightly so the real benefits of these technologies are realized in a way which is beneficial for the country, businesses, and the common man. We would like to understand the various nuances around that area, and for this, Vicky is happy to present this session to you all. With these words, I would now request our Secretary General, Mr. Dilip Shunai, to kindly deliver his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you for that. And Mr. Himanshu Kampania, who is the chairman of the Task Force on Privacy and Data Security, FICCI, also the chair of the TED Council, Ms. Gauri Gokhale, co-chair Task Force on Privacy and Data Security, Mr. Srikanth Rajgopalan, co-chair Task Force on Privacy and Data Security, and of course, our guest of honor this morning, if he's in the US, and this evening, if he's in India, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi, Technology Fellow and Chief Data Scientist at Halliburton. To all the distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that all of you are keeping well, keeping safe, and keeping healthy, that your families are also doing so, and your colleagues in your organization also are keeping safe and healthy. Please do continue to follow COVID-appropriate behavior, even if you're vaccinated. And if you're not vaccinated, please go at the first opportunity and get yourself vaccinated. I take this opportunity to welcome you to this session, Taming Emerging Technologies to be a Leader in the Era of Compounded Disruption. For me, it's a pleasure to be with this in the part of this Tech Thought Leadership session, which is one Mr. Uday Shankar, the President, FICCI, had made this one of his priorities. He said, how can we get tech leaders from around the world and even in India to come and share their perspectives with industry? You know, I think COVID has been the greatest disruptor. It has actually enabled adoption of digitization even faster than a chief information officer, the chief digital officer, or the chief executive officer thought about. And I think there are many new ways for companies to leverage this, and also us as consumers to leverage this going forward. And therefore, we need to understand what framework, understand how they are actually work, what is the way they operate, and demystify them. And therefore, this Tech Thought Leadership session is really to not only say how it will work, to demystify it, but also talk about the great contribution it can make both in our personal, professional, and business lives going through. Of course, data will be a central role in this disruption. Machine learning or data analytics are giving businesses and societies the power to analyze the past, understand the present, and create and fuel the future. So I believe this is an important aspect of understanding technology. Through the lens of emerging technologies, we can examine how data is becoming the world's most valuable asset, making innovation possible and transforming the way we make decisions for the future and how businesses operate. I think the FICCI Task Force on Privacy and Data Security is looking at addressing these issues and challenges. More and more internationally, countries are seeking data agreements with different countries, and India is also being requested to sign these data agreements there. And it is very important that this group that we have formed presents industry's view to the government during the formulation and consultation of the data protection frameworks. And we will continue to take these ideas forward. I'm sure, and once again, a very warm welcome to Dr. Satyam, a key speaker, who will share some valuable insights on the emerging technologies today And I think it is for each one of us to figure out how we, our organizations and businesses can apply these and take it forward. I would like to actually welcome you once again and hand the session back to Sarika, who could actually take it on if Jyoti has not yet joined. So otherwise, Jyoti can take on the session. So thank you very much, and keep safe and keep healthy.
Thank you. I think Sarika, you take it forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Before our next speaker, I request, I think Mr. Kapania just dropped out with a network issue. So we have a chairman for the task force on the privacy and data security, Mr. Himanshu Kapania, and he's also a position holder as a vice chairman of Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail and Director Telecom for Aditya Birla Management Corporation Private, and of course the chairman of a tech council in FICCI. We would be requesting him to deliver his welcome address as well as agenda setting. By the time, I think, while we are talking about the technology, failures do happen at times. So I think some connectivity thing has come up. So he's back. So thank you, sir. You're back, and over to you, Mr. Kapania. Mr. Kapania, can you hear us?
I think, Mr. Kapania, if you could switch off your video, perhaps your voice will be clearer.
I will do that.
So we are unable to hear you.
Sarika, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
My sincere apologies. Though we are discussing digital services, the challenges of connectivity in this country remains. Anyhow, good evening, friends from India, and good morning to Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi, joining us from East Coast of United States. Let me start with saying, with over 2.5 decades of experience in the Indian telecom industry, I've been a keen follower of the evolution of digital services in India. So firstly, I'd like to start, for the benefit of Dr. Satyam, recount how India has made major strides in the adoption of digital. In the last 4 years, India has risen from amongst the lowest ranked broadband penetration countries to become numero uno nation globally in terms of data consumption, which is currently at 12 gigabytes per user, highest in the world. India now is also the second largest mobile broadband country after China, with more than 750 million active mobile broadband users consuming daily over 300 petabytes. Last year, India emerged as a leader in mobile apps downloads, beating China, with Indian subscribers downloading unprecedented greater than 30 billion apps in the year 2020. As of now, in terms of digital social apps adoption, India is not only the home to the largest user base of WhatsApp at 390 million and Facebook at 330 million, but also amongst the fastest growing market for communication, media, travel, entertainment, e-commerce, and many more other related digital services. As these trends strengthen, India's data consumption is projected to increase 3x time from 12 gigabytes to greater than 30 gigabytes per month per broadband user. Also, with the number of broadband consumers projected to grow from existing 750 million to 1.2 billion, the impact of digital in the lives of Indians are only going to be more profound. Not only the common man, but also the government has been able to reap the benefits of the accelerated digital growth. In the recent past, digital has been cornerstone of all major government initiatives. The digital revolution has enabled us to create Aadhaar, the world's largest biometric ID system, with over 1 billion citizens enrolled on the same. With mobile, PAN number, bank account linked with Aadhaar, India has been able to create a unique digital identity for every citizen of the country. A live example of digital services supporting our lives, as Dilip was talking about, is during the pandemic, when in times of complete lockdown, citizens have been able to continue with their day-to-day activities and work from home. Digital is spearheading our fight against the virus, with Arego Setu app providing us contactless updates on any nearby risk of infection, and CoWIN platform being the key facilitator of COVID-19 vaccination drive. Till date, Arego Setu app has used over by 200 million Indians, and CoWIN app has 389 registration for vaccination and 387 million doses being administered already. I believe second only to that of China. So digital has also helped us to build economic inclusivity across various sections of society, with over 2.6 billion UPI transaction worth over rupees 5 trillion. It has been a lifeline for the masses in times of this lockdown. The trinity of Aadhaar, mobile, and bank account has been boon for the government to provide DBT to the economically weaker section of the society. We believe a far superior system to the earlier subsidy-led model, which had significant leakages. However, as we are aware, the digital age comes with its own set of challenges. Take the example of Aadhaar. It has a full access to individuals' information, including biometrics and personal details. And at one time, its use was made mandatory for availing essential services like banking, subsidies, and even public services, requiring personal data to be shared with third parties. At that time, individuals seeking services had no choice but to accept government mandate. It gave rise to a public debate with proponents of the system opining that privacy was not a fundamental right. On the security front, Aadhaar system itself has been facing myriad of problems in form of claimant data leakage, likely exposing personal information of unwary citizens. Another example of this recent controversy is surrounding WhatsApp's updated privacy policy, which mandates users to accept it, thereby allowing WhatsApp to share users' personal data with Facebook and other third parties. No doubt, digital applications like Aadhaar and WhatsApp play a very important role in our lives, but these examples indicate that we as a society have a long way to go before we resolve the issues of data privacy and security. The story on the enterprise side isn't very different. In a recent incident in April 21, data of 180 million orders on Domino Pizza was leaked and went up for sale on the dark web. We understand this leaked data included personal information of customers, including credit card records. In another incident, an online grocer suffered a massive data breach, leaking personal information of nearly 20 million customers. Multiple Indian companies also have faced ransom attacks last year. A recent global survey by a cybersecurity firm, Sophos, revealed that India is amongst the top 30 countries facing ransom attacks, with Indian companies spending a few $1 million to recover from attacks. Such attacks not only cause financial loss, but also significant damage to hard-earned reputation. And these facts point towards serious concern that even our enterprises are not fully ready to handle the issue of data security. However, we have to admit that in spite of above challenges, India has made significant progress in areas of data privacy and security. In 2017, the Supreme Court, in its Puttaswamy judgment, declared privacy as a fundamental right, arresting the debate once for all. Later, the government constituted a committee headed by a retired Supreme Court judge, Justice B.N. Srikrishnan, that submitted reports on data protection framework in 2018. The report established individual consent as a lawful basis for processing of personal data. In 2019, the government introduced the Personal Data Bill in the parliament that establishes a legal framework for collection and use of personal information, though still the bill is being debated by a special committee of parliamentarians. Further, there has been many developments on the non-personal data framework that paves the way for unlocking the immense economic potential in non-personal data. The NPD committee, under the leadership of Chris Gopalakrishnan, submitted its first set of recommendations in July 20, and after thorough consultation with stakeholders, submitted the revised version in January this year. These developments on personal and non-personal data are in the right direction. The other key development is the emerging digital transformation in the enterprise domain. As India is gearing for the arrival of converging exponential technologies, be it AI, cloud and edge computing, robotics, virtual and augmented reality, IoT, blockchain, big data, 3D printing, and many more innovations, we just can't afford to be complacent on the core issue that stand in the way of these positive disruptions. We must get our basics right to harness this full potential. This brings us uh, to today's Tech Thought leadership session on taming emerging technologies to be a leader in the era of compounded disruption. It's a good fortune to have Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi with us today. He's a technology fellow and a chief data scientist at Halliburton, US, and also a senior fellow of International Cybersecurity Center at George Mason University. We would like to hear from him his analysis on emerging challenges in data, special lessons for India, and the way forward for the country as we enter this new era of compounded digital disruption. Back to you, to the FICCI team, and then over to Dr. Satyam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kapania, for giving well thought process on the importance of data, emergence of data, numbers it's increasing in the overall environment within the India and how we are going to do it. And of course, the role as FICCI as a chamber and this particular task force we are going to play, be it on the PDP or the NDP side. So thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts and enriching it with your knowledge. Now coming to our keynote speaker, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi. So we look forward to take further this knowledge train with you, with your experience, and to know more about deep diving on the subject. For the benefit of the audience, I'd like to introduce Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi with few words. So he is a technology fellow and chief data scientist at Halliburton. He is recognized as the first chief data scientist of the oil and gas industry. Dr. Priyadarshi is a pioneer in the fields of data science, big data, and emerging technologies. He is also a member of the Mauritius AI Council, Republic of Mauritius. His work or profile has appeared in many places, including Chemical Engineering News, The Scientist, Silicon India, Oil Review, and the list goes on. He's an author, co-author of over more than 35 plus research papers, numerous patents, book chapters, expert opinion articles in magazines like Science. Dr. Priyadarshi is the author of Small Business Success Index and Big Data Maturity Model as well. He's a recipient of many industry accolades, and he's one of the very sought out speakers in the areas of emerging technologies, quantum mechanics, cybersecurity, blockchain, big data, digital transformation, among many others. The Society for Petroleum Engineers named him as the 2021-22 SP Distinguished Lecturer. He's currently associated as a visiting faculty as several universities and institutes in the US and India. Dr. Priyadarshi is also on the advisory board of several emerging entrepreneurial companies. He earned his PhD in quantum and theoretical chemistry from IIT Bombay and MBA from Virginia Tech. Sir, which is such a strong profile, which I just read out for the benefit of the audience. Over to you. We will look forward to get your insights on the subject and your thought process and what we should do as a country to prepare ourselves well to handle this sensitive area called data. Over to you, Dr. Priyadarshi.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you, Mr. Shinoy, and all the FICCI team, especially Sapna, who really chased me down to make sure that I speak in time. And thank you, Mr. Himanshu, for the overview of digital India. And I certainly believe that because I started my kind of digital journey in India in 2005 when I set up a AI/ML center for a company called AOL. And I did it at that time both for India in Bangalore and Beijing. And then we had at that time in 2005, roughly about 40 people working in the field of AI/ML in the internet world in India. And but of course, China took the lead in many ways. But I think now I can see that evolution, and this is my second instant of setting up another center in Bangalore for Halliburton. And I took over that center in last year when there were 23 people, and I'm I'm happy to say that, I've grown that center to almost 100 people, and still people are joining. And my goal is to make it up to 300 by the end of 2022. And these are mostly people working in emerging technology. And I'm also very thankful to the team that we were able to actually meet the targets of diversity hiring. And we have actually made offers 66% women in the field of STEM, that is science, technology, computer science, data science. And so 66% of those offers that I made were to the women in this field. So this is the future of India. You can see, because these are all freshers out of colleges around India, and going to work in some of the interesting and powerful technologies that are needed for the transformation that's taking place. So with that background little bit, I'm going to first say, let me thank a number of people, especially FICCI team, and then after my parents, my PhD advisor, and my primary school teachers, because of them I'm here. Otherwise I wouldn't be there. And then of course my family and a lot of collaborators around the world, and all those who are listening today, because I think they believe in this transformation that's taking place. Since Sarika has already read my background, I'm going to skip that part of it. I'll come back to the actual topic. What I believe what's going on is in terms of business world and even in personal life, what we are facing, what I call is a deep compounded disruption. And the deep stands for basically four things. One is this digital maturity. I think it's a highly confusing term, and I will show you why I say that. And then of course, this evolution or the acceleration of emerging technologies, the pace at which they are being developed, and at the pace they are being actually adopted. And as Himanshu ji was saying that we had challenges with data breaches, and I can tell you a lot of stories about data breach, because the first famous data breach happened that caused everybody to think about data breaches seriously was that AOL data breach. And I used to work at that time in that company. And when that news came on in the morning around 8:45 a.m., I was driving my car and I heard that there is a data breach from AOL. And I actually paused my car, stopped my car, and called my boss. I said, I know exactly where that came from, because I had a discussion at that time with some people in the company. I said, you should not be doing these things, because that is not right. And as a result, a lot of things happened. So these data breaches are going to be there, and how we manage it is very, very important. And the third one is energy transition that we talk about. It's not about going away from fossil fuel, but actually the source of energy. Energy transition is one of the most, I think, critical and important aspect, because this will change the way we do business. And the last one, I think Mr. Shinoy just mentioned that, pandemic has been accelerator for the technology. I certainly believe that it has been, and I will talk about more. So if you look at these are the four, basically the concepts that are interlinked heavily. So somebody might say energy transition doesn't impact my business. I'm in manufacturing, or I am in pharma industry or in drug discovery. But I can tell you that energy transition impacts everyone. And hence, one has to really look at this not just as a problem for energy industry. But the foundation of all these actually lies in the data. And this interesting observation that what I have seen is, except for the data native companies, which are like the AOL and Yahoo and Googles of the world, or the social media, but then that's a different kind of data that we are talking about. But large portion of the bigger companies, or what I call critical infrastructure companies, like the energy sector, the healthcare sector, the pharma industry, the challenge that you hear all the time from them is that about what's the foundation of data is. And these companies have a significant capital loss over the decades. And the reason is if you really do a proper survey and you ask the people, then you will get the answer, oh, our data is not complete. Or they will say our data is not of good quality. In fact, if you take an average number, it will fall out in bigger industries that only 40% of data is complete, and they will say only 30% of their data is actually of good quality. Now, this itself, leads to significant amount of what I call capital loss and of course data loss. And as a result, it actually is about time that is lost. And the third question that keeps up coming in bigger companies, at least, thankfully, it may not be a problem in small and medium-sized companies, but it does happen there as well, as to who owns the data. Now, so if you actually combine these three factors, incompleteness, bad quality, and ownership, the business value that is lost is significant. And I'll show you some example that just by mining unstructured data, you can actually, in bigger companies, can actually generate rough millions of dollars worth of savings or cost reduction. Now, the second part that I talked about, emerging technology. So we are all, I think Mr. Shinard mentioned about exponential technologies. Now, concept of exponential technology, while theoretically is good, but how good are we actually in adopting those exponential technologies? For example, if you look at the search technology, take any big company. My viewpoint is mostly from US and Middle East and a little bit of India. If we take any of the big companies, how good is the search technology that is implemented in a corporate world or in the business world? For example, if you buy a washing machine and it starts making sound, you can go to YouTube or whatever your favorite channel is, and you can type the LG model XYZ, and you can actually find videos how to fix it. Now let's go take the same example of a mechanical pump or a electrical pump or any equipment that has been in operation for last 20, 30 years in a big company, not to name anyone, but any of the big oil companies or any of the energy sector companies, and you go to their website, intranet site, forget about internet, but intranet site, and you type the model, what can you find? You probably will find nothing, because the metadata that is their manual that's sitting in a file somewhere, and if it's a digital copy, it's sitting on a CD somewhere. It's repair report, which is also in paper or in Excel or in Word, sitting in some other place. Its deployment as to operational deployment of those machines in different places is sitting in some other files. Now, the data actually exists in these companies, but it's not been actually, you're not able to access it. And this is the reason that search technology is almost 30 plus years mature. In fact, the data native companies really make money out of it significantly. But when it comes to its implementation to critical infrastructures, even for that matter, the government websites, even for intranet, it's not very easy. So why there is such a gap of like technology being mature and its implementation? So, and this actually, the answer lies in what I call the talent transformation. And we will talk about that in a few seconds. The third one is energy transition landscape. As I said, it is going to have a domino effect across the industry, and it's going to be as complex as this landscape picture that I'm showing, as to what source of energy we are using, how it's being consumed, and how we are actually correlating them for the what purposes. And this will be geographically challenging, as well as business wise, like what industry should leverage what kind of source of energy, and how the transportation of the energy. So this whole landscape is not as simple. Somebody is saying that, okay, now that we got solar, we can replace fossil fuel, or we have better fossil fuel, so let's replace renewable or geothermal. It's not as simple as that. The modeling of it is difficult, and we all know that if you look at the history of oil and gas industry, for the last 50 years, if you look at studies, they will tell you that we only have oil for last 50 years. So this has been going on for quite some time. And in fact, oil and gas industry talked about digital oil fields almost 30 years ago, but I am yet to see a digital oil field yet. The third one is certain. The last one is certainly the pandemic, and as Mr. Shinoy mentioned, that it may have been a technology accelerator, and I can actually say that in some sense, while it has impacted the life significantly, but it has been certainly an accelerator for adopting certain technologies. I was in Dubai talking to a CTO and a CEO of an oil company in February of 2020, and I said, I think it's time that we adopt cloud solutions, and they said, oh, it's not needed. So, and I fly back to US because of the COVID restrictions coming up, and literally 1 month later, the same people called me saying, can I have your team help us with the cloud technology implementation? So this has been great accelerator for actually some of the technologies. But is it enough? No, because this is a reactive acceleration. But what we really need is a proactive acceleration of adopting that. But that requires a lot of thinking, because there exists what I call a digital minefield. What does that mean? So the thing is, while we talk about these terms, and I certainly, Himanshuji gave a long list of achievements in India of adoption in terms of numbers, and that was some years back in the US as well. But the actual people who are leading these digital efforts are actually have a real gap in understanding what it is. So this is a survey of lots of leaders around the world, and it's done like a traditional paper and pencil kind of a survey to ask them what do they understand by these terms. And if you can look at it, this minefield graph, as I call it, people really don't understand even the term, which is very important in any business. It's called actionable insights. So what is the definition of it? And that tells you that if such people are leading the organizations, then how much can you achieve? And this actually lies into the discussion that was being presented related to cybersecurity and all, because all these terminologies actually impact how we actually think about cyber mitigation risks as well. And there's bigger survey, but what I'm showing you here is this is the state of leadership when it comes to digital transformation, and hence there's a lot more work to be done for many businesses and organizations. And that is even true when we talk about like the governmental agencies and as well, because I've done some little surveys there of my own, and I don't really publish that because it's more on a one-on-one basis. But it's a very what you call a sad state of why people have not been able to adopt these things much faster. But having said that, a lot of achievement has been done. And since this lack of this knowledge is there, this has actually led to a lot of capital destruction, as I said. Like for example, in oil and gas industry, this was an article 2 years ago, and it says that, that the energy industry, or especially oil and gas industry, has been doing capital destruction for 20 years. I know that there was a statement 2 or 3 days ago by the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, on something about ONGC and Oil India and other companies, that they need to have their act together or something like that. And I think this is an example, not only ONGC or Oil India, but pretty much it's around the world, that people really need to understand how to reduce this capital destruction. And in order to do that, one has to really understand how the digital journey looks like. And I think what I will illustrate that is with an example of an industry that some of you know very well. We use the terms like digitalization, like as if they are the same thing, or digital transformation, but they are not really the same thing. They are as simple as that. You see, the record player was the digitization of audio into something that we can actually save and move. But the sharing of that was not easy because you have to carry this huge box of record as well as this player. And then came the revolution of what you call iPods and cassette players. Now, this is where one aspect of what you call miniaturization of technology took place, where you could actually now carry this with you wherever you went, but still it was not easy to share. But the real transformation that took place in music industry was when now you have streaming music. So I can listen to a song and I can actually share that my album with you without actually sending any of the songs with it. What I'm sharing is my knowledge, if you want to call it, that these songs go together and you can listen to my album as well. Now, this is what is called a transformation of any business. Your whole workflow, all aspects of that business has actually been modified. And if you look what has happened, I think there was an article 2 days ago or 3 days ago, which says that artificial intelligence will take away 70% of certain types of jobs. I think these are all very confusing articles, because if you look at this industry example, artificial intelligence algorithms are used in all of these streaming operations of music. But if you look at the number of jobs that has been created is significant. So during the record player era, there were maybe 5 or 10 companies that made money, and there were like 20 artists that made money. When the cassette player came, those artists became hundreds, and a lot of companies were evolved as a result of it. And a lot of people got employed because these devices have to be made, configured, and whatnot, miniaturized. And now in the streaming world, you have a large number of people with cloud technology, artificial intelligence algorithms, the data scientists, the people who are developing UX, UI. Now you suddenly have millions of people actually employed by the industry, and the size of the revenue or the total value of the business has exponentially grown from a record player times to the streaming times. And who knows what's next, right, for this industry. And this is how actual transformation takes place. And you will not lose any jobs. You will find different jobs. And that's where we need to actually have what is called talent transformation. But this requires a new kind of thinking. And this is what I call paradigm shift. And if this was a live talk, it would be much easier. But I'm going to still try that and see if people can understand how I think of this paradigm shift. So the question that I usually ask is, what do you see here? I know we probably can't do that here because people may not be able to respond to answers, but if you can see, while as a data scientist, I look at this picture and I say it's only black and white pixels. But since we have been trained from the childhood of certain shapes and certain sizes, I might say, oh, there is an elephant, there is a donkey or whatnot, dog and a cat. But after that, I think it gets very difficult for most people. Now, as a data scientist, I said it's a black and white pixels, patterns are emerging out of it. And so I am able to point them or explain to them that what they could be. But if I really want to really go further, then I can actually click on it further and see that it's actually a lot more than just the elephant and the cat and the dog and the donkey. It's like there are 13 more animals. Now, some of you might actually challenge saying, oh, it doesn't really look like a snake. It looks similar to that. But actually, when it comes to digital transformation and when you want to look at the data, you really have to look at those hidden shapes and patterns that are there. Because if you already knew what you are looking for, then you really can't transform your business. And hence, this is very important that as we really look at any of the adoption of the emerging technologies, one really need to think beyond what we already know. And then this actually enables, when you start doing that, it actually enables you to tame the technologies that exist. That is, for example, the cloud technology, while I think Himanshuji mentioned, I think that the ransom or the Domino's data breach and more and more ransomware attacks have taken place. Now, with the cloud technology being implemented and adopted, these things are going to increase. And then how do we actually be prepared for it? And for especially critical infrastructure companies, this edge computing is significant. And if I can actually leverage the edge devices which are on the field, which are remote, if I can really put my algorithms to do 80% of my work, I can actually save my data as well as save my asset or the field as well. So these what I call new way of thinking actually can help that. And then of course, large portion of these technologies which you hear about, wearables, the drones, the robots, and immersive reality, what I call is important rather than just augmented and virtual reality. These things will actually change as we actually progress in adoption of the foundational technologies like cloud. But in order to do that, we have to really address the first 4 problems. That is, how are we actually tracking the provenance of not, if most major industries don't have what is called data provenance. And then now we are talking about information provenance, and then after that model provenance. Because if we are actually deploying, say, artificial intelligence algorithms to the field, especially on the edge in a remote area, how are we going to track that? Okay, today I actually built a model and pushed it out, and tomorrow, say for example, I'll just use Himanshu's name, he pushes out another model and he doesn't tell me, then how do I actually figure out which model was run on Wednesday, right? So these are open challenges in terms of provenance, and I think it's an open area for anyone to start a startup. How do we really do provenance of data, information, and models? And then of course the knowledge. And then this whole question of multiplicity of data that exists in many businesses, especially oil and gas industry. I can tell you that there are 7 to 8 copies of the data sitting around, and that actually leads to cybersecurity risks as well. And the data being in silos is another challenge that we all know in bigger industries may not be as big as in a small business or medium-sized business, but they do exist. If you really want to look at any adoption, then you have to do what is called holistic view. That means you need to really connect the silos effectively without actually moving all the data into a cloud or a data swamp or a data lake or whatever. Because the methodology that I prescribe is like more about how do I actually pipeline the data, and that is very, very important. And when you do that, you can actually address your cybersecurity challenges very well, the access to the data as well as monitoring of it becomes easier, and then you can also start slowly deploying blockchain kind of technology on small sections of the critical data sets. And once you do that, I think what we can do is really achieve significant exponential value by actually increasing our automation maturity from digitization to digitalization to digital transformation, and eventually a digital disruption of an industry. And this is what I call the digital DNA that can be actually practiced and deployed effectively. And there are examples of that we have done, and so I'm not going to go in details. There are a lot of methodology behind it that has been done to really achieve this. And if we do that, then especially in energy sector, what I call that we can actually achieve energy 4.0, which is basically what we can do is a convergence of various sources of energy that comes in. So that actually modifies the whole investment model, how the business is done, the regulatory framework that needs to look at differently. Right now, most regulatory frameworks are for a specific industry. And when we are talking about the next generation of energy transition, then the regulatory framework has to change, and the technology aspect really need to change, because we are talking about platform technologies, and the platform technologies cannot be just for one kind of energy sector or any other sector. Hence, this is achievable. And it takes time, but the main important thing is, in order to achieve one of the other paradigm shifts that really need to take place is what is called, I call it, focus on the value and not on the concept, right? A lot of conversations you may have heard people will talk about, oh, let's do a proof of concept project, whether with artificial intelligence or data analysis, so that we can actually take it forward. My question to those people is that which part of the concept are you trying to prove? Is it whether the artificial intelligence is working, or whether it is the data has value, or data is working? So if both of these things are well known, that data is known that it can help us in many industries, many case studies, and artificial intelligence algorithms have proven their value long time ago. So why don't we do it in a business setting? What is the value that I can generate with a small amount of data, and then scale it up to the holistic view of the business, and hence focus on value, not on the concept. When you do that, you can really build this real-time resource optimization. And in some sense, reducing that time to value is significant, whether it's small business or medium-sized business or a large-sized business, because the faster you generate value from the data, the better it is. And this is an example for a company in Asia, where we actually mined something called 9,000 PDF files. Only 30% of that PDF file was actually mined, and it was a savings of $2 million per year. And this is published in an article in World Oil. But the thing is, what I'm saying is most of the companies have these kind of data sets, and these are low risk analysis, and you can actually significant value sits in those data. Another example of another in Middle East that we did, where we could actually save roughly $2 million by just connecting the historical data with real-time data by leveraging platform technologies that we have. And these things are because I want to really reduce the time from the data to actual value. And these are practical aspects that can, and you can measure these economic value in many other aspects, not only just cost saving, but revenue, the efficiency of a process, the accuracy of the process, or the NPV. Those are financial metrics for everything that you do with data, irrespective of the industry. And then if you look at it, the foundation actually lies in the data, but at the same time, you can only achieve this when you can actually transform the talent. So while it is good that people can adopt these apps and things like that around the world, increasing adoption of mobile technology for personal use, but when it comes to actually implementing in business world, that has been a little challenging even today. And hence, what we really need to do is capture the tacit knowledge that sits in people's head, and convert it into explicit knowledge, so the next generation of the workforce can really leverage it. So we have done a lot of work around that exercise in the last 7 years in the energy sector. And I can tell you that tip of that triangle is very, very important in terms of really accelerating the pace of digital transformation. And the other part that is really confusing a lot of people is that this whole concept of artificial intelligence, machine learning, et cetera. In my view, it is very simple. It's data science, and data science stands for science on the data. It doesn't matter what approach you take. So I use this 1-minute guide for my team and around the world, that data science is about figuring out how to create value from the data, whether I want to use the first principles of science and engineering, or I want to use statistical methods, or I want to use data-driven methods. And depending on the business problem and the value that we are expecting, we can actually really use combination of these methods. You don't have to be one or the other. If we actually do these and understand these clearly, we can really change and transform the businesses in many sense. Because as I said, a lot of data has of low quality and incomplete, and I call that data as dark data. And the thing is, when you can start using data, the actual analysis at scale, you can actually convert that dark data to smart data, because we all live by smart data. When you're typing on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, you really want the other person to see what you are typing. But why can't we do these things in businesses? Why do we have to spend so much time trying to collect the data, manually do the quality? Who defines the quality? That is an important question as well. Why can't let the computing algorithms do that? And then actually, in order to scale it up, as I said, we leverage a lot of platform technologies, and it can be actually very powerful to do that. And this can be looked at in terms of a certainly success index for businesses. A couple of years, almost a decade back, I did some kind of authorship on what I call the business success index. At that time, looking at certain different technologies stack, and you can see that how we can compare industry or the companies or the sector within the business, and you can actually leverage that significantly. So in summary, what I would say is, there are really 4 pillars of this digital transformation. If we can understand that it is the data analytics part of it, and how do we integrate these emerging technologies so that we can actually relook at real-time resource optimization and increase the automation across the industry. Again, I would say that none of these processes will reduce the total number of jobs. It will actually increase the total number of jobs. We already know right now, for example, cloud technology people are hard to find. And a few years ago, nobody talked about cloud really. And hence, people trained for cloud technology are needed all around the world. Data science, we all know that 250,000 jobs in US, something around 100,000 jobs in India are open, same thing in Europe. So where do these people come from? And the one way to do is either do a talent transformation for the current subject matter experts, or actually in the colleges and campuses and other places. So in summary, all the data is important. So some people might say, oh, lots of data is needed. Not really. You can have very small data, as I call it, or large volumes of data. But the most important one is that historical data plays a significant role. How good or bad it is, it doesn't matter, because you start with something that you have, and then you build from that and build something called smart data. And then, of course, leverage what I call data in motion. That is the data that you create as a result of your analysis. And then leverage basically science on the data at scale. And then keep adopting emerging technology as they come. For example, search, I gave you an example, mobile technology, the sensor technology. And then once you can do that, then eventually you can really reduce this time to value from the data. And with that, a lot of these things I have actually published, and there are some of these references here that you can find. With that, I'll stop here. I think I've taken more time than I was given. Thanks very much. And if there are any questions, I will take.
Thank you, Dr. Satyam. It was really insightful and very deep dive, starting from various concepts. I'm sure it was a few things which is new to many of us. I mean, we did learn about the D3 and of course the journey from digitization to digital transformation and the core components you talked about it. And of course, the focus on the talent, which is very important. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was really, really insightful. And we really look forward to being discussions with you in future as well. I'm thankful to Swapna for connecting us and getting this session organized. Before I move on to the next phase of our program, yes, there are a few questions. I am sure there are many, but I could only take about 2 or 3 in the interest of time, because we're already at 6:10 from the IST time. So with your permission, I'll go in for the questions, and I'll raise a question to you, and I'll also request the chair and the co-chairs to add on their views in case they want to feel anything about a particular subject. So maybe I'll address the first question. There's an audience who's asking, a person from the audience, sir, as a user, access to my data is a point of concern for me. However, at the same time, as a user, indeed, it gives me a better internet experience during online shopping. Where we draw the line?
Great question. I spent many years in an internet company, so I know I need the user data. But at the same time, I think one has to really look at certain things to protect yourself, right? Some simple practices, as we call it, is that don't have the same username password in 15 different sites, right? It's a very simple logic. Have really hard passwords. If you can't remember, use some, nowadays we have software where you can store your password, right? The second is that good hygiene for your computer is very, very important. And I think a lot of people probably don't understand what that means. One is like, if you're a home router, please reboot it once a month, if not sooner. All right, it cleans up, because if you don't, you can see on the logs that you are getting attacked by China all the time, right? Irrespective of it, because they are looking for a loophole. It may not happen because the routers are pretty hardened, but still. So cleaning that helps. Your own computer, deleting cookies often, only if you want to use different browsers for different things. For banking, don't use the same browser. You use Firefox for banking, and Microsoft for browsing. So you isolate. Here the silos become very important to protect your privacy, right? And these are some best practices you can do. There is, because if you don't give your user information, then you can't get good recommendation system. So recommended things. So it's a balance, but that balance can come with some of the best practices. It's like our own personal safety, right? So it's exactly the same method that you use. I have 4 different browsers on my computer, for example. I get 0 advertisement on my computer, in any browser, it doesn't matter, right? Do I lose something? Yes, I do lose. When I'm browsing a site, I don't see any advertisement, so I don't know what's happening in the world that way. But if I really want to look at certain site and say what is being promoted, I use a different machine, basically. I would not use my personal laptop. Correct? So I think these are some of the things that at least you can do to protect yourself.
So I have one submission to that. Very low tech, but very common that everybody can do. Everybody buys online on Amazon and Flipkart in India. You will be surprised how many of these packages get thrown away with the label intact, with your name, address, and contact details all printed in clear text.
Yeah.
So my submission to anybody who's worried about personal privacy is, yes, you should be worried about how big tech is using your data, but you also have tools in your hand to keep yourself safe, starting with something as simple as ripping off the address label before you dispose the brown box. It's not always high-tech solutions that you need to look for. Something commonsensical and low-tech will also keep you safe. Back to you, Sagar.
Yes, so the other aspect that I'll say on this particular topic, I think Shrikant comment actually made me to say that is the concept of social engineering. Do not ever share with anyone. Doesn't matter. When I started working at AOL, the first thing my boss said, even if the CEO of the company is asking for a password on the phone, you say, I will call you back. Right? And that practice has come very handy. I can tell you, especially when I was working for AOL, every month there will be somebody who wants to know something about a server or something, right? So you cannot feel bad of refusing. So even if it was a real executive asking for it, if you refuse it, it's not that will be like you will be penalized for it. So that is very important in today's world, especially when bank people call saying, I'm from this bank. Do not give anything. I said, I will call on my own time, or any Amazon for that matter. No, you should never give out information when you are getting a call.
Sure, so I'm sure these are like basics which is required, but if we follow this thing in daily life practice, it really helps everybody. Yeah. So thank you. Mr. Kapania, Ms. Gauri, would you like to add anything to this question, or should I move on to the next one?
Please move on.
Okay.
Move on, sorry.
Thank you. So another the audience person is asking, can you please elaborate on the role of data and disruptive technology with respect to IR 5.0, which is Industrial Revolution, I guess.
Yeah, so, if you look at role of data has been there from very beginning. In fact, you can even look at back as Industry Revolution 1.0, right? Data is the foundation, right? In fact, the famous story is when in London, they did the weaving machines, right? It was really data driven because there was objection that we can't deploy those machines. They said, oh, we have 1,000 weavers in London and they will be all out of job. So, data plays a significant role. And when we call it disruptive technology, almost every technology that is being used is disruptive. So when it comes to, say, for example, artificial intelligence, it's been there for 50 years. What has changed is its adoption in the way that we are now doing today, because the computing technology became more effective and more what you call accessible. But otherwise, the algorithms, if you think, there are not many new algorithms that are being deployed, right? If you look at typical papers from artificial intelligence, everybody talks about neural networks. I've been lucky. My scientific grandfather happens to be one of those people who actually developed Hopfield neural network. So Professor Hopfield was my scientific grandfather. So the thing is, disruptive technology is the application of the technology to disrupt what we want to do. So all the technologies that are there, they are all disruptive in how we implement it. Correct? And hence, and when it comes to IR 4.0 and 5.0, in 5.0, what we will see is more and more of machine-to-machine communication taking over. And then IR 6.0 is when we will actually have human-machine and machine communication going really mature. Right now, we are more like human-to-machine communication. We control the machine, we write the algorithms which may break, right? Eventually, can machines write their own algorithms, right? That will be in IR 5.0. And hence, this technology will play a significant role.
Yeah, thank you. Any other words from the co-chairs?
Thank you.
So in the interest of time, I'm sorry to the audience that we can't take more questions, although we would love to, but I think in the interest of time, we will stop here. If there are any other questions which you want to be taken separately with our speakers, Dr. Satyam, or even with the chair co-chairs, please write to us separately. We're more than happy to take it offline. So with this, thank you, Dr. Satyam, and I now request our co-chair, Ms. Gauri Gokhale, for the concluding and sum up remarks. Over to you, co-chair.
Thank you. And this was one of the most exciting sessions I've attended on the data with a completely different outlook. And I think I have 6 takeaways, which are, some of them are for our committee to take forward. Some of them are for FICCI, probably for their other committees to take forward. The first one, I would say that very interestingly, you mentioned about the completeness and good quality of the data, and the importance of the data which is sitting here to be brought in the framework of that completeness. So I think that is one important takeaway, and this across various industries, because we have been talking about data only in certain fields of life, and you have sort of explained to us that for sustainability, for these are the very, very important points across the sector. The second, so this particular input that you have given, sir, we are working on non-personal data as a part of input to the government. So some of these inputs are going to be very, very important for us to take forward. The second takeaway based on your survey is just the knowledge about this entire field and the importance of creating that awareness, because if we have to achieve that data to value, you can't have these missing links to sort of at various stakeholders. So that is a second important takeaway. The third important takeaway is about the talent that you mentioned. Skill, India has launched
Ms. Gokhale, we are losing you. Maybe you like to switch off the video?
Initiative. So very important takeaway as to where do we need to go for skill. Okay, so I think I hope you heard my last talk about data to value, the right modeling. I think that was one important takeaway. For different businesses, the modeling may be different, and not only the right modeling at a particular point in time, but the flexibility to continuously evolve with the newer technologies. I think that was very, very important. And of course, one aspect you mentioned, which is the regulatory framework, because unless you have the right regulation in India, there have been some discussions around M2M regulations, etc. So the right regulatory framework for the industry to grow, so that it is not curbed at a very nascent stage, and the regulators regulations act as enablers for us to take the things forward. So I request if Shrikant wants to add anything, but these are 4 to 5 important takeaways for us in terms of path forward. Thank you very much for that very, very, enriching session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for highlighting the 5 6 pointers on the same. Now, of course, I will request another Co-Chair, Mr. Shrikant Rajgopal, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks, and also if you want to add any other points, like on the subject, on this topic, or like Ms. Gokhale mentioned on the sum up thing. Over to you, Mr. Shrikant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First off, thank you to Vicky for organizing this mind-opening session. I can't describe it in any better words. The joy of participating in these sessions is it opens your mind to so much more that is happening outside our day-to-day work. And having experts like Dr. Satyam give generously of their time and tell us what is happening in the industry, which we honestly may not be familiar from a data perspective. Right? I think first things first, thank you to Vicky to put this together. Thank you, Dr. Satyam, for sharing a very, very mature and inclusive view of what it takes to make data work for business value. As a team, just three of us, Mr. Himanshu, Gauri, and I, who tried to put together a very ambitious plan to establish data hygiene in the country through various means. Part of the excitement of this journey is just learning from people like you. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Back to you, Sarika.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Satyam. Like the co-chair mentioned, it was really a really insightful session and we really enjoyed it. As a team from FICCI, the chair, co-chairs and our secretariat, led by Mr. Shenoy and Ms. Jyoti Vij, we will be happy to take it further, the discussions with you, not limited ourselves to just a one discussion this time. We are very thankful to our colleague Swapna to getting us connected, and maybe we'll look forward to have many of those discussions in future as well. Like I mentioned, the task force has a very important role to play for the overall data environment for the country. And I would not say only the country is something which we are immediately focusing on, but we are also open to see how we can collaborate with the other regions. So the task force which FICCI has, we have this mandate. We'll work. We will be working on the whole data ecosystem and also are using data as an enabler, like you mentioned, for the general good, keeping the various nuances in mind. So we are really thankful to you for sparing your time. And thank you, Chair and Co-Chairs, for being with us. It is really being helpful and motivational. And our thanks to our leadership, Mr. Shenoy and Ms. Jyoti Vij, for being there. Thank you, audience, for being very supportive and, of course, coming up with the questions. Like I said, in interest of time, we could take up only a few questions. But we promise we, as a task force, will be back again with another good round of discussion on a very important area around the subject. So we will definitely keep on having these Tech Thought Leadership sessions. I'd also like to acknowledge the support of my team and my other colleagues at FICCI, through which we could organize this session. I'm hoping that all of you will remain safe and are following the COVID protocol. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye.